School, lost to the rigidity of time. But that was okay. It was all okay, because he'd lived a life to be proud of. Mostly. Loved a woman who lit the sun. How he'd ever snagged a looker like Millie, he still didn't know. He used to ask her what horrible thing she'd done in a past life to pay penance like this in the present one, being saddled with a man like him. She'd swat at his shoulder and he'd pull her into an embrace, and she'd squeal and pretend to fight, and they'd end up on the floor, laughing. From the slider door, Tuck stared at the dining room floor. It was going to be one of those days, a memory day, he liked to call them. A time when he'd graciously let Millie's ghost roam the house, landing here and there and drawing him away from whatever task he'd begun. Into the eyes of the old man in the mirror, Tuck said, "I miss you, Millie." He blinked several times, but the tears still filled his eyes. Somewhere deep inside, Tuck knew what he had to do. It's what Millie would want. It's what he wanted. "Not sure I can make this right, but I'll do what I can." He told himself this, because there wasn't any other human to talk to. He talked to Bullet plenty, but Bullet was a dog, and though his giant brown eyes were usually full of understanding, he rarely gave an opinion. A true friend, but not always the most helpful one in times like these. Tuck turned away from both the mirror and the memories, and gave his attention to the shoreline. Hands splayed on the rotting wooden banister. One day he'd replace those boards. He yelled for Bullet, using his sharp military voice because it carried across the entire lake and echoed back to him. It was oddly comforting to hear that voice, even though it came from Tuck himself. It reminded him of a time when he was strong, at the peak of his life physically, and knowing that at least a remnant of that man was left gave him hope. No matter where Bullet had gone off to, the voice would bring him home. The German shepherd came jetting out of the woods, making an arc as he ran into the wind along the shore, his feet moving so fast Tuck could see the spray of water at the edge of the lake being kicked up by massive paws. He shook his head but had to smile. "You'll be soaked by the time you get back here." He didn't really mind. At least Bullet could still move with the ease and agility of his youth. Bullet bolted up the back steps, taking them two at a time. Tuck reached down and scrubbed at his ears. Bullet instantly turned to putty, leaning and groaning. His fur was peppered with dirt and water, but his shepherd undercoat was dry. "Come on," Tuck said, and Bullet followed him to the door. "Dry your feet." Bullet lifted and dropped his front paws before entering the house. Without taking time to think about it, Tuck grabbed the phone from its cradle on the kitchen wall while the scent of lake-wet dog rose around him. He dialed one of the only numbers he knew by heart. "Hey, Phil, you still got the information on that PI?" Tuck heard Phil riffle through papers. "Sure." "Tell him to find my grandson." There was a pause. "You sure about that, Tuck? There could be repercussions." Maybe there would be. He could live with that. But the uncertainty of a grandchild living out there somewhere and Tuck not knowing him, well, it was getting where Tuck couldn't live with that. Repercussions or no, he needed to reach out. "We might not find what you want to hear." The words were deathly soft. Cautious words for a battle-hardened attorney. "He might be dead, is what you're saying. I'm an old man, Phil, not a fool. I know the kind of life his mother led. I need to know what happened. Either way." Tuck left no room for discussion. This was his call. His call alone.